But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bruce Karasik, co-founder of the Jewish Republican Alliance, talking to you live from beautiful Southern California. Thank you for joining us today on another special edition of JRA LoudSpeaker. There is so much for Mitch and I to talk about today. The presidential attempted assassination of President Trump, his reaction, the RNC convention, the Secret Service, the presidential race moving forward, will Biden drop out? So much to talk about. But first, earlier this week, I wrote an article called Fight, 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 Courage and Leadership in the Face of Adversity. And I emailed that to everyone. I hope you all read it and forward it to the people you know. And here are some just brief excerpts from that article. The doctors called his survival a miracle. Everyday Americans are calling it divine intervention. And the first person to respond to that attack was President Trump. As the Secret Service agents tried to rush President Trump off to safety, President Trump fearlessly told them to wait. Stunned by the bullet that struck his ear, with blood dripping from his ear to his face, with the American flag waving behind him, almost immediately after the attack, he rose to his feet in defiance with strength and vigor, his fist raised, and yelled to the crowd, "Fight, fight, fight." He was letting all Americans know, and the whole world know, that he was okay, that he was strong, that he would not give up, and he would not quit. And when the shots rang out in Butler, Pennsylvania, we would have expected a stampede, people running to cover, to save themselves. But the people stayed. Everyday Americans stood their ground and did not abandon the former president. Just as President Trump stood his ground, so did the crowd. Sadly, Corey Compatore, a firefighter and father of two daughters, was shot and killed that day. He died a hero. He shielded his family with his body to protect them from the gunfire. We also had two other attendees that were critically injured. Former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, correctly said that Saturday's attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, is an attack not just on President Trump, but our nation as a whole. President Trump's reaction was historical. It has already become legendary. His exemplary and extraordinary courage and leadership is a towering example similar to other prominent, respected Americans who, like President Trump, risked personal safety to fight for America and the values that have made this country great. And then in my article, I talk about in more depth about other people who have come before President Trump that were similar to him in their courage. Our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, they were all subjected to financial ruin, imprisonment, and death. George Washington, how he risked everything for the cause of the American independence. Abraham Lincoln issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, which ultimately led to his assassination. The 6 Marines that raised the flag in World War II at Iwo Jima. Jackie Robinson, the first African-American baseball player to play in the major leagues. Martin Luther King, who led the civil rights movement. His March on Washington, his iconic I Have a Dream speech ultimately led to his assassination. The astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, who were the astronauts of Apollo 11 that had done something that nobody else had done before, and the risk that went along with that. And then there were American heroes, Todd Beamer, Mark Bingham, Tom Burnett, and Jeremy Glick, who rushed the cockpit on 9/11, Flight 93. Just like American patriots that came before, so many American heroes throughout history, Donald Trump has risked and dedicated his life to our country. He has accomplished more as president in his first term than almost any president in our lifetime. In addition, President Trump has done more to support Israel and the Jewish people than any other president in history. He recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, relocated our embassy to Jerusalem, recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, brokered the Abraham Peace Accord, halted aid to the Palestinian Authority, ended funding agencies that were perpetuating the Palestinian refugee issue, designated Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, withdrew from the popular Iran nuclear deal, supported Israel at the United Nations like no other president in history, vetoing resolutions, consistently defended Israel's right to self-defense, and the list goes on. And he made it clear when it comes to Israeli-Palestinian relations, the Americans stood with Israel. We can now celebrate that the American spirit of toughness, loyalty, courage, and determination is alive and well in this great country of ours. May that unforgettable spirit continue to reign over the land of the free and the home of the brave. And may those three words, fight, 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 be a reminder to all of us that we must continue to fight for the values upon which our great country was founded. I want to thank you all once again for being here. And it's now my privilege to introduce to you fellow JRA co-founder, Mitch Silberman. Mitch?
Hey, Bruce, thank you so much. Last Sunday morning, July 14th, I received 2 texts within 5 minutes of each other from dear friends that were husband and wife. Ironically, the verbiage was about the same, and I don't think they knew. They were almost simultaneously texting me the same point. And what they texted me was, Mitch, you were right. You predicted they were going to try to assassinate him months ago. And listen, I don't have any clairvoyant powers. Your political insights are just as good as mine. But I hearken back to my college experience. The biggest takeaway I got from being an accounting major and becoming a CPA eventually was my accounting professor, who said to me, when all else fails, use common sense. Now think about it. They impeached President Trump twice. They threatened to indict him for the first time in American history, indicting a former president. They did indict him. They tried to bankrupt him. They smeared him. They lied about him. They took him to court in 4 different states. They threatened to put him in jail for the rest of his life so he could die in jail. What else was there left for them to do other than try to kill him? So this is where we are. Now, in the last 6 days, all of us have read, heard, and seen so many things about this topic. So some key takeaways from me. You're 78 years old. You're on stage. You suddenly get shot in the face. You're bleeding profusely. The Secret Service throws you to the ground. A normal reaction is to hunker down, protect yourself, be in shock. President Trump, he is not normal. And I mean that in the greatest way possible. This man stood up within seconds of being shot, blood dripping from his face, surrounded by Secret Service. And what did he do? Throws his fists into the air. Fight, fight, fight. He is larger than life. As a UFC executive said, as well as now today, Mark Zuckerberg, he is, forgive the language, he is the biggest badass in America. That is a warrior spirit. There's no time to think that through. He acted just who he really was. It came out in that moment, and it was inspiring. It was unbelievable. Okay. Another takeaway is when you call someone Hitler for 8 years and he's a Nazi and he's going to destroy democracy, how is that not inciting violence? How is that? How can you not expect someone out there to do that? Okay. And I also believe, and we have to talk about this as well, it is predictable and pathetic how many on the left are either happy he was shot, upset that but for him turning his head ever so slightly, that the bullet kind of missed. These people are deranged, and it's just awful. Now, apparently 1/3 of Democrat voters think it was staged by Trump himself. I will tell you, this week alone, I have Christian friends as well as my rabbi who are 1000% certain this was divine intervention. But for him turning his head ever so slightly at that precise moment, the bullet would have pierced his brain, and our country would be a very different place right now. It's incredible. And finally, the Secret Service. I really do believe this was an inside job. Now, I do not mean that they hired this guy, this 20-year-old, but think about it. A 20-year-old outsmarted all of the Secret Service, all of the local police. How did that ladder get there? How come people in the audience saw what would look like a potential sniper on the top of a building that should have been secured? Okay. And a couple of things to think about. Okay. CNN never, ever broadcasts his rallies live. He's an avowed liar. We're not going to give him a platform. Why were they broadcasting that day? Why was that different? Okay. And then this, from what I can tell, it's accurate. The Securities and Exchange Commission has confirmed that a company I never heard of called Austin Private Wealth shorted DJT stock the day before the assassination attempt. DJT stock is Truth Social. It went public earlier this year, earning President Trump billions of dollars. Why were they shorting that stock the day before the attempted assassination? And according to what I've read, Austin Private Wealth is owned by BlackRock. Okay, so there's a lot of things that really need to be addressed. And of course, the incompetence on full display is shocking and inexcusable. Anyway, I know we have so much to talk. Bruce, I just want to say publicly, the article that you wrote was absolutely superb. I would like to tell our audience that I wrote it, except I had nothing to do with it. Bruce, and if I know Bruce well enough, Bruce and Judy wrote it, and it was superb. So thank you for sending out for an amazing statement on behalf of JRA, Bruce.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks for your great opening. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Secret Service and what happened. I don't understand how in this age, how they could not secure that building. I don't know if this was just poor planning. Was it just incompetence, or was it malevolence? I don't know if this was bad, whether people did this. We have no evidence of that. But you start to wonder, when all these things have been predicted, this should have been an easy target to secure. Where were the drones? Why did they allow anybody on top of the building? It's just fundamental security that they should have taken care of. And this person, I think her name is Secretary Cheadle, the head of the Secret Service. She needs to resign. And I don't know who else needs to be let go. But you can't allow this to happen. And, they prevented also Robert Kennedy Jr. from having Secret Service all this time. And suddenly now he has Secret Service protection. How could they have let that happen? And then who knows, is he worse off now for having Secret Service protection? But what's your thoughts on what they could have done, should have done?
Well, I do believe it was done on purpose. I mean, I want you to think about this for a second. Everyone's heard of corporate espionage. It's been going on for decades, maybe centuries, okay? I'll just pick on Coke and Pepsi. I know corporate espionage is illegal. I don't know all the laws involved, but do you think that the CEOs of Coke and Pepsi are doing maybe unethical, illegal things to try to get a leg up on each other? Of course they are. And this is just business. This is just with billions of dollars of sales. The president of the United States, we're talking about trillions of dollars. We're talking about power. We're talking about people potentially going to jail. The deep state cannot allow President Trump to continue on his path. So what I don't think anyone hired this kid. I think the Secret Service looked the other way. There's just too many things that don't add up. I've read that they pulled off some of his detail to go to a special event for Jill Biden. I also just saw today that some of these people that weren't even actual Secret Service agents, the lapses I think there's a level of incompetence, but I also think there's a level of this is what needs to happen because there's so much at stake right now. And it is truly frightening, really, really frightening that this could happen, but there's too many lapses in judgment, too much incompetence. You know, all the things that went wrong were to endanger President Trump. So there's how on earth could all of these things gone wrong and not one of them favored him? So I think that and then not only that, let me just read this to you. I saw this posted today, and I love when people post things so succinctly. Think about this. And I'm reading this. Someone named Wendy Patterson posted this on Twitter or X. An assassination attempt was made on President Trump. One man died, two were in critical condition. And get this: no FBI press briefing, no DOJ press briefing. House Representatives won't reconvene back in session. U.S. Senate doesn't reconvene back in session. Oversight sends out invitations to appear, but not subpoenas. The FBI director refuses the invitation to appear. Cable media refuses to call an assassination attempt for several hours. Secret Service director refuses to resign. Mayorkas says he has confidence in this Secret Service director. I mean, the list goes on and on. Pennsylvania police agencies ignore their jurisdiction and blame the Secret Service. Secret Service can't define their jurisdiction and blame the police. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's inexcusable, and it's inconceivable that, sorry, one or two people just made a mistake.
Well, ultimately, the Secret Service has to be the primary entity that has responsibility for the safety of the people they're guarding, in this case, the former president. And the people that were surrounding him jumped around him and in heroic fashion put their bodies in line of any future bullets. But I think the people in charge did a terrible job. And the police, the head of the police in that area said, we weren't in charge of this, they were. And so there's a lot of finger pointing going on, but ultimately responsibility has to be held with the Secret Service. And you know what? You mentioned BlackRock. I mean, there's a commercial that was released where this guy, and it's funny, like how real life has funny names. Like his name is Crooks. Of all the name, the person to be an attempted assassin is the guy that sounds like a crook. It's really amazing. But he was in a commercial. And then when that was going on, apparently BlackRock owns this company that also owns TikTok. And then when that was going around, they pulled that video and it wasn't out there anymore. So there's a lot of things to ask and things to be uncovered in the coming days.
Well, you mentioned a key word, Bruce, which is accountability. During the debate, we have talked about the debate too, but President Trump pointed out something that was so telling, just something I never thought about. He asked Biden, does anyone ever get fired? No, there is no accountability on the left. I mean, think about it. The director of the Secret Service is blaming everyone, goes to the the RNC. No one's held accountable, no investigations. The lone gunman, a 20-year-old who outsmarted both the police and the Secret Service, has no social media presence. And of course, dead men tell no tales. So there is so much that we've learned in 6 days alone. Now, we all have to be careful. It's like in my business as a wealth advisor, I'll hear someone say, well, they say the market's going to crash. Who's they? Oh, the internet. So you got to be careful. We all read stuff. I've been, I'm guilty of it too. I read that, blah, blah, blah. I heard that, blah, blah, blah. So we have to really do our own homework and our own research. But when I first heard that DJT stock was shorted the day before, I didn't believe it, but it appears to be true. And when someone pointed out CNN never televises his rallies, why did they televise this one? And furthermore, there was a professional photographer there. I know nothing about photography, but he said the kind of camera that was used is meant for rapid action. And how did that person get positioned just that way to capture President Trump with the flag behind? I mean, there's so many things that just don't make sense, including the fact that I've also heard that President Trump typically looks forward, rarely turns just his head to the side, and he did it. That's the divine intervention part. I mean, just incredible. But there's a lot that has to be found out. And you know what? The FBI that's been trying to put him in jail is now the FBI or the DOJ that's been trying to put him in jail is the same DOJ that's going to get to the bottom of this.
Right,
Sorry,
exactly.
don't buy it.
Mitch, moving to another topic, I try to watch different networks, read different points of view. And so I don't want to be in a bubble where I'm not hearing what people who disagree with me are saying. And it's so interesting. You mentioned the debate that obviously Joe Biden during the debate was really bad. But for those of us who have been watching him for the last 4 years plus and watching all the videos, when he said he visited all 54 states, and like where he said half of the women in his administration are women, and go on and on and on and on with the just crazy things that he has said, his lapses. And if anybody on the right brought that up in the past, it was buried. It was not shown. It was, he's fine. In fact, even after the debate, Nancy Pelosi and everybody, he had a bad night. He had a bad night. And he went around and they all supported that. And so I think it's just kind of interesting that now, in the name of democracy, they're trying to push him out. And no one is saying they're pushing him out because he's incompetent or he's unable to do his duties. It's like, we don't think he can win.
Let me tell you something. The Democrats, the leftists in charge, crave power like you and I crave air. So I don't know what shenanigans they're up to this weekend. There's all kinds of stories that I've heard as of last night. We shall see. He's agreed to bow out of the race. He's staying as president, which should be mutually exclusive, and he won't back Kamala. That's what I'm hearing. But let me tell you what's not going to happen. Okay, none of us know what for sure is going to happen. I will tell you with 100% certainty what will not happen. What will not happen is today's Democratic Party, which are led by dangerous leftists, are not going to say, hey, we gave it our best shot. He won. Congratulations. That's not how they roll. So whatever they've got planned, and you're right, they are living hypocrites. They scream about democracy. And yet here they are saying, we don't care that he won the primaries fair and square. We don't care that he controls, the war chest. We, the elites, we need him out not because he's incompetent, as you said, Bruce, but we need him out because he can't win and he's going to hurt our chances in the House and the Senate. So we, the powerful elite, we need him out, and then we will decide who should replace him. Doesn't sound like democracy to me, does it?
It really doesn't. And Biden is running around saying, I'm not going to leave, well, at least before the last few days, I'm not going to leave. 14 million Americans voted for me in the primaries. And I'm thinking, 14 million, like there's got to be at least 75, 80 million Democrats, and only 14 million people voted in the primaries. And then the Democratic Party kept Robert Kennedy Jr. deliberately off the ballot so he had no challenges. He hid in his basement the whole time during the last election. And you cannot say that if you say there's no fraud, then you're lying. But you cannot even say that you can't even deny that there's the appearance of fraud in the last election. They're all saying we're going to go to the ballot box and decide it, or as he calls it, the battle box. But there is no ballot box anymore in California. Everything is mail-in. You have all these outdated voter rolls. Sorry. And so the appearance of fraud is very, very high.
Oh, undeniably, the way they changed laws, the way that 4 states stopped counting simultaneously in the middle of the night when Trump was ahead, the way that whatever that state was, forgive me, that put up, barriers so you couldn't see what's going on in the counting room. It's mind-boggling to me. And you talk about his debate performance. I think it was yesterday, Bruce, the day before. He went to some, I think it was an NAACP convention. And he's talking about, he couldn't remember his Secretary of Defense. And he goes, the black man. I mean, if Trump or any Republican said that, it'd be front page news. He would be forced to resign. And yet the average person doesn't even know. In fact, I got to share a story with you. Our producer, Mark, knows this story only too well. We were at a wedding a few weeks ago in California, and I was talking to someone who is, I know, votes Democrat, not a radical lefty at all, smart guy, wonderful person, business owner. And I said, this is before the debate. And I said to him, have you seen any of the videos where Biden is shaking hands with invisible people or wandering off into space or mumbling? And he said, no, I haven't seen any of those. And that's an indictment, not of him. It's an indictment of the media. That's how powerful the media is. And then to make matters worse, Mark, to his great credit, sends out a very, very nice, very unthreatening email to this group of people that said they hadn't seen any of that. And said, do you see it now? Now the debate, do you see now what we're talking about, what we've on the right have known for years? And I swear, one of them said, oh, are you a doctor? Has any doctor diagnosed him properly? Has anyone checked Trump to see if he's okay? It was like, I was going to pull the hair out of my head. This is why I can't engage with people like this, because they are otherwise incredibly intelligent, wonderful, patriotic, fantastic people. But when it comes to Trump, they literally cannot think straight. It shocks me and saddens me.
It does. And I've seen people post things who I genuinely thought were nice people I've known for long periods of time. I saw one Democrat post a picture of President Trump covered with blood, holding up his fist with an Academy Award Oscar. And now they're criticizing him for wearing that ear patch. And I'm thinking, and they said, well, you criticized us for wearing masks, and now he's wearing that. Well, the difference is one was put on by a doctor, and they're doing it to protect his ear that he was just shot. And the masks were mandatory. We didn't criticize someone who wanted to wear a mask. It was like, you had to wear a mask, whether you wanted to or not. And I think there's a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's literally, there is, it pains me to say this because there are people in my life, all of our lives, that we love and respect that cannot think clearly when it comes to President Trump. And I attribute that to the power of the media. The media is that powerful. And by the way, maybe this is a good pivot. If Biden gets replaced, okay, from what I understand, unless it's Harris at the top of the ticket, those delegates and that money cannot be transferred. Okay, that's my understanding. So talking about the power of the media, if Harris gets moved to the top of the ticket for some reason, you will watch, Larry Elder said this morning, they're going to turn Kamala Harris into the second coming of Joan of Arc and I forgot who else he said, Rosa Parks. She is going to be the most incredibly talented, courageous, groundbreaking woman the world has ever seen. And there's a huge percentage of the people that will, there's that old joke. We thought during COVID, the most washed part of the body were hands. It wasn't, it was brains. And the media is brilliant at messaging. So here's the thing. We cannot get complacent. Yes, we have momentum. Yes, Trump should win an electoral landslide. Yes, he should win 50 states to 0. But never underestimate the nefariousness and the deviousness and the commitment of the Democratic Party to hold on to power at all costs.
Yeah, to me, it's almost like the difference between a Dodger and a Yankee fan, or a Laker and a Celtic fan. It's like they're fanatical. And so you could put SpongeBob running for president, and if he said he was a Democrat, he would probably get 47% of the vote, just because he's not a Republican. And it's really important that people, like you said, Mitch, I think you alluded to something that we've been talking about for years, is if information is being held back by news media and people are not aware, then you're really living in a third world country that is where the media is controlling what they think you should know. And, blocking, as you said, blocking live speeches by a certain one candidate or another is very scary for America. And they cannot say that they didn't know this about Biden. The media cannot say that. People can say it, they didn't see it, but the media knew, and they need to be held responsible for that.
Well, as I've said before, accountability, responsibility is not part of their lexicon. You know, it's never their fault. It's always someone else's fault. No one gets fired. No one gets held responsible. It's truly awful. And, you know, right now, the Democratic Party is in free fall because they have, I mean, I know this is going to be crude, but I've been saying this about Biden for years. My acronym for him is DISC, D-I-S-C. He's demented, incompetent, stupid, and corrupt. And if he does step down, they're going to say, oh, what a nice man. You know, Grandpa Joe's doing the right thing. He is not a nice man. He's an evil, horrible person. Now, let me tell you something else, too. I've just said it publicly. I think he's an evil, horrible person who's done irreparable damage to many people in our country. I would never once, even privately, be happy if he got shot. If I found out he got shot, I would say that's awful, period, end of story. Yes, I want him to face justice, whether it's through the legal system or through God himself, but he does not deserve to be shot. So for people on the left to be rejoicing that Trump was shot or upset that the bullet didn't do its job is truly despicable, and it reflects on them more than anything else.
I hope if Kamala Harris is the one nominated, that we're able to hold her accountable for some of her ridiculous failures and views. I never wanted to see Joe Biden impeached. I wanted to see him shamed and have a fair election. I thought it was a waste of time. I didn't want to see him impeached. But Kamala Harris has been, I'll be kind, less than supportive of Israel. Less than supportive of Israel. She bailed out and supported Black Lives Matter during the riots of 2020. She has been incompetent when it comes to running the border. And they can prop her up and have her smile and cackle into the camera. But ultimately, she has to be held accountable for what she's said and done. And she was never popular. She got 1% of the vote when she ran for president.
Well, we have a question from our audience, and I would encourage you, if you're watching, you have a question, please type it in. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. What will happen if Kamala's passed over for the nomination if Joe bows out? This is complicated because on one hand, the Democratic Party is painting themselves into a corner with this DEI. I love someone said DEI stands for didn't earn it. But she's not a Black woman. She is a woman of color, and I think she identifies as a woman. But anyway, that'll go bad. Their base, it will go very bad. That how could you possibly pass up the first woman of color, the first person of color that the president had confidence in as the VP, but not enough confidence to replace him. I think it's going to be, and they're weighing that. But Bruce, they also, the powers that be, they know she's a cackling nitwit. They know it. I mean, she's got the IQ of a dart. She is completely incompetent. Not to mention how she started her career, which I won't say on a family type show, but they're in a pickle. It couldn't happen to a better bunch of people. But the one thing I heard today was very encouraging. I heard that, you know, the RNC, both the convention we just had, as well as the Republican National Committee, is a different animal under Trump's direction. I heard that the RNC is already preparing legal action should the Democratic Party replace Biden and Harris with anyone else. And the RNC, from what I heard, is trying to preemptively say, you can't transfer the delegates and you can't transfer the money. So they're in a real bind. They are in a real bind of what to do about her but as I mentioned before, do not underestimate the power of the media to make her out to be the greatest thing the world's ever seen.
Well, it's very, very true. And just as they all pivoted, and now it's their mission to get Biden to drop out. I mean, it's their mission. If you turn on CNN, if you read the New York Times editorial page, if you look at it, it's their mission to get him to resign. And no one is saying, well, he better not finish out his term because he's just a mess. No, he can't win. You know, there's another question from the audience. It's actually an anonymous attendee. What effect do you think RFK Jr. will have on the election? Well, it's my opinion that no matter who runs, it's going to be a close election. And I think it's going to be a close election only because of all the mail-in ballots that are still, and early voting that's going to take place. I don't trust the voter rolls. I don't trust, like in California, 100% mail-in ballot. If you look at Real Clear Politics, they have a lot of polls they put out with the 5-person race, with Stein and others and RFK. But I think it's too soon to tell, but I think he will be taking some votes away from both sides. And what I've seen, he's taking more away from the Democrat side than Republican side.
Yeah, I concur. We have another great question from Brian Q. What does it say about the Democratic Party that would be willing to take a virtual vote for the nomination prior to the DNC convention? Well, what it says unequivocally is that they crave power at all costs. They don't care about democracy. By the way, we don't have a democracy. We have a Republican. We're a republic. We are to the republic to which it stands. We're a republic. Okay. They don't care. They don't care about the voters. They don't care about anything other than power. And they don't care that this is a national security risk, that we have a dementia patient in the most powerful office in the world. I mean, would any of you watching this, would you allow Joe Biden to drive your car, to make you cook with a hot meal, heck, to take an exam? Okay, no, but they don't care. They don't care about any of that. All they care is he can't win. He can't win. We have to beat Trump. We have to stay in power. There is so much at stake on the left that they don't care if they're going to alienate or anger their base by doing a virtual vote. They don't care. It's all about power, and everything else is completely irrelevant to them.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And my biggest concern for this election was the same concern I had in 2022 and in 2020. Republicans are running on issues and Democrats are running on collecting ballots. They've already used a lot of the federal agencies, and they're going to continue to use the federal agencies. I don't understand how that could be legal, to collect ballots on their behalf. And when you have people collecting ballots, who's going to say, when you have a mail-in ballot, that some guy has his kids off at college and let's say he's got 3 kids that are off at college and they're not home. And he says to them, do you want to vote? What are you going to do? Oh, no, Dad, you can fill it out for us. How will anybody even know? No one will ever know that. How would you even know if someone's on a respirator and some family member fills it out? If there was one person, one vote, and everyone had to show up at the polls, I think it would not even be a close election.
No, it would, and that happened to me. All 3 of my kids went off to college, and we got their. I think one of my kids got a ballot mailed to him in his home in college, and one to our house. So it's ripe for fraud. We have another really good question about, and we can pivot on this. Ed S. He's a little concerned about J.D. Vance's past discussions of isolationism as it regards Israel. And he comments, yeah, I thought, I mean, it's irrelevant now, and I didn't put much stock into it or thought into it. Who is Trump going to pick? Well, I knew Trump's going to pick whoever he wants to pick. Okay. I wanted him to pick someone to help him win, not help him govern. But that being said, I think J.D. Vance is a very, very solid choice. We all know his story is an amazing story. I love that he's married to an Indian woman. So I guess, dang, they can't call him a racist. That's unfortunate for them. But I will tell you this. From what I understand, he's a staunch conservative and he has faith in his life. And those 2 things bode well for supporting Israel. Find me a true conservative that has faith in their life. It's a central part of their life that doesn't support Israel. Does it exist? Sure. But and I'll tell you, it drives me nuts. President Trump is unequivocally the most pro-Israel, pro-Jewish president America has ever had. I have faith in his decision-making process. He would not pick anyone who was soft on Israel or wasn't a staunch supporter. I have complete faith that J.D. Vance is an American first guy, but will stand with and for Israel.
Well, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Here's Vance praying at the Western.
Oh, I love it. Do you know when that was, Bruce?
No, I don't.
That's fantastic.
So one of the questions from the audience, another anonymous one, what is your predictions for the DNC convention?
Oof.
you better strap in. It's going to be a bumpy ride. I think, and I'm not a great predictor, but I'm going to predict this one. I think there's going to be protesters in the streets. I do not think they're going to honor Israel and Jews as took place in the RNC convention. If they do, I think they're going to be booed. I think there's going to be a fight, and they're going to have to work like hell to keep people in line. I remember the 1968 convention. I'm old enough to remember that. I was a kid, but it was one of the first, it probably was the first convention that I ever saw. And my first real exposure to politics was during 1968. And there was riots in the streets, and isn't it funny that was in Chicago? And now this one's also in Chicago.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a real spectacle. A lot depends on what's going to happen this weekend. If it's true, and this is a big if, because you have to listen. No one is an expert in everything. We cannot read everything that's put out there. Okay, it's hard to discern what's true, who to believe. But if in fact those three things that were written yesterday by reliable sources comes to pass, meaning Biden won't run for re-election, he wants to stay as president, and he's not going to endorse Kamala, then the DNC convention is going to be an absolute zoo. It's going to be just, I would say, a nightmare for them and a popcorn time for us. Okay. So I don't know, but you're right. Their own base are the radical lefties that hate America, that hate Israel, and they're in a world of hurt right now. Not just who to pick, but the money, the delegates. The cat's out of the bag of how today's Democratic Party thinks about Jews and Israel. In fact, our producer Mark mentioned today that there was a stunning video which I watched. I encourage you all. I don't recall his name, but it's a young Jewish student wearing a kippah that goes to Harvard, and he gave a brilliant speech at the RNC, and I think he's suing Harvard for the hostile environment that they allowed and fostered at Harvard. So, the DNC, there's probably, you're right, Bruce, they're not going to make one mention of Israel. It's a toxic topic for their base. And again, it's all about power. Everything they do is about power. That's all they care about. And Israel would hurt their base that they need to maintain power. So yeah, the DNC convention is going to be wild, depending on what happens between now and then.
Well, if they don't choose Kamala Harris, then they risk the fact that a lot of Black voters will not show up and not vote, feeling like, how can you pass her over? But who else do they have? Who else do they have?
Well, okay, so there's all kinds of speculation. The names I hear bantied about, of course, besides Kamala, because she checks the boxes, which is why she got the VP nod. There's that Governor Josh Shapiro. There's Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And then there's that obscure governor. Maybe you guys have heard of him, Gavin somebody. He's angling for that position too. And then the big one, which I hope is...
He's doing a great job in here.
Doesn't the rest of the country want to be just like California?
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
But it doesn't matter. He's delusional and he's slick and he thinks he's done a great job. But of course, the big name no one wants to hear is Michelle Obama. From everything I've heard, she would win in a landslide, which is pathetic. But the other thing I've heard is she has no stomach for it. She doesn't have the fire in the belly, doesn't want to do it. And I don't blame her for that. I mean, I'm not a fan of hers or whatever, but I understand you have to be a real special person to want to run for president of the United States and take on those slings and arrows. So they don't have many people, but as we've mentioned over and over again, Bruce, all they care about is Biden can't win. They don't care. They don't care if the country burns. They don't care if they violate the Constitution. They don't care about democracy, voters. They don't care. All they care is we have to win. We have to maintain power. And that's their North Star.
You mentioned Josh Shapiro. I assume he's Jewish with the name Shapiro, right? But I have this, some people want one of their own elected for president. Black people want to see a Black person, Irish people, whoever, Hispanic, whoever, they want to see one of their own in the White House. I never want to see a Jewish president. I'll tell you why. We get blamed for everything already. imagine if there was a Jewish president, Jews would be blamed for everything that's going on. I don't think it's important for us to do that. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, my mom of beloved memory used to say whenever someone was in the news or doing something horrific, her first thought was, please don't let him be Jewish.
It's
You know,
true.
we're already blamed for enough. We don't need worse. I don't even know who this guy is. I know he's the governor, I think, of Pennsylvania. Forgive me if I have it wrong. I'm not sure. I don't even know who the guy is, but they don't have much of a bench. They're in a really tough spot. They have a dementia patient and a nitwit on the ticket. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating, but let's not lose sight of the fact that our enemies are plotting against us. And this is actually a really important topic, because if you're a bad actor, look, throughout all of history, men have created war. That hasn't stopped now. Maybe technology has changed, methodology has changed, approaches have changed. But if you're a bad actor, like, you know, you can name any of North Korea, China, Iran, Russia, you got to be licking your chops. And you got to also wonder, they have an incompetent, cognitively impaired person in charge now. That may not last for long. They may see this as a window of opportunity to do something really nefarious.
Lori W. is, please encourage Californians to vote for Steve Garvey for U.S. Senate. Very important. Others are saying, do you think Steve Garvey has a chance? Well, I thought he was a great first baseman. I remember as a kid going to a Dodger game and having him sign an autograph for me. And I remember looking at the size of his forearms, because he had a huge forearms when he swung the bat. I think his heart is in the right place. There's just far too many Democrats in the state, and I don't know that he has the money to be able to do it. But, you know, I think Republicans are going to show up for him. Hopefully there's enough of us.
Well, I still read the Ventura County Star every day, and I kind of try to keep a tab of what's going on in California. From what I understand, I think he's running a very low profile campaign, which I don't understand why. There is so much open and available dirt on Adam Schiff that I don't know why he's not going on the offense. You know, this approach of, you know, losing with dignity and taking the high road. I'm not saying roll in the mud with the pigs, but my goodness, I mean, he seems to be MIA, Steve Garvey, and I wish he would be more forceful. I wish he wouldn't be afraid to be a patriotic conservative that loves America. From the distance here in Tennessee, it just seems like he could be and should be doing much more, because the registered Democrats in California, as we all know, far outweigh the registered Republicans. So I just wish he would do more.
Well, it appears from the polls that I've seen that he's way behind. And like you said, we're not really hearing anything about him. I'm just wondering if the RNC is even supporting him, thinking like it's a lost cause and not giving him any money.
That's a valid question. I don't know where the purse strings are going. We just got a very interesting follow-up question from Susan L. She says, if Harris is on the ticket, obviously as president, who do we think she would pick as a running mate? I don't think she's going to pick anybody. I think it'll be chosen for her. And I think it would probably be, since she punches the DEI ticket, you know, she's got that, the party would have that covered. So it could be, dare I say, a white Christian man or a white Jewish man would be probably the running mate that would be assigned for her. It's actually very relevant. Someone posted this. It may have been Charlie Kirk a long time ago. It's not that President Trump is out of control. It's that he's out of their control. He can't be controlled. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are being controlled, are easily controlled. Joe, because he's just not all there anymore. And Kamala, she's just not bright. So, she's not going to pick anyone. They're going to pick for her, and she will do as she's told, in my opinion.
Well, Lori W., who I know, also just responded to my comment from her question, and she says data shows that Steve Garvey has a real chance to win. Well, we'll see. We'll see, hopefully.
I don't know. We can't lose sight of these are precarious times. For those of us watching, we can't be complacent. We can't assume this is ours to win. The RNC has a history of pulling victory or pulling was it defeat from the jaws of victory. It's different now with President Trump in charge and his daughter-in-law in charge of the RNC. I do see a difference, but never underestimate the left's will to win. What they'll do, whatever it takes to win, and we have to do something. Be a poll watcher, donate to great organizations such as the Jewish Republican Alliance. Get others to vote. I like what Charlie Kirk is doing. He doesn't call it ballot harvesting. I think he calls it what does he call it? Something the ballots. He has a great catchy phrase for ballot harvesting that he called chasing ballots. I think he calls it. So our side has to step up and do more than ever, because this could be America's last breath if this election is stolen again.
Well, we're doing a lot, and I invite people also to go to JewishRepublicanAlliance.org. In the last several months, we spent a lot of time and energy redoing our entire website. It's more interactive. It's more modern. It has a really, really great software system behind it that turns out is an Israeli company. And so we invite you to go to JewishRepublicanAlliance.org, check out our website, get involved, and help us with the fight. We're not on the sidelines, and we invite you to join the fight. As President Trump said, fight, fight, fight. Well, fight, fight, fight with us.
Yeah, it's I really did get choked up watching his response. I mean, it was something to behold. Just his instinct. He stood up when he shouldn't have. He stood up when he didn't know if it was still an active shooter. And the other thing you pointed out, Bruce, which is so true, what did the audience do? They stayed. They didn't run. They didn't have a panic. They didn't have a stampede. That's indicative. And by the way, this also has to be said. Our candidate that we love and support was almost assassinated. How many cities did we light on fire? How much rioting did our side do? We're not the same. We are different. We didn't do anything like that. And the same thing when they indicted him. The same thing when they did a mugshot of him. Same thing when they found him guilty and tried to put him away in jail till he dies. Our side is different. And the thing that I would encourage, I'm sure all of you have people in your lives that you love and respect that are going to vote Democrat no matter what. Don't berate them. Don't give them a hard time, but point things out, make them think, make them wonder, like, why are you supporting the side that does blah, 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 blah? And the list is very long. You are supporting the side that burns cities. You're supporting the side that wants to bail out perpetrators. You're supporting and voting for the side that wants criminals let out with no repercussions for the crimes they commit. You're voting with the side that wants to cut off aid to Israel. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You need to make them think, like, this is not today's Democratic Party is not what it was, or as Ronald Reagan famously said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
Well, Mitch, I agree with you very, very much. But if they were running on issues, just take 2 minutes for a second. What are the issues that they can really run on in this election? They can run on 3 issues. They can say, you guys are a racist, and make that unsubstantiated claim that everybody's a racist. They could say January 6th, January 6th, January 6th, and they can say abortion unlimited for everyone forever. What can they run on the economy? Can they run on crime? Can they run on the border? Can they run on absence of wars? Can they run on what can they run? Seriously, what can they run on?
One word: abortion. To those on the left, sadly, many in the Jewish persuasion, there is nothing in the world more important than having unfettered access to abortion on demand. That is their, that's how, one of the ways they prevented the red wave in 2022.
You really
Someone-
believe that's true, or do you
I do.
think the media is pushing that?
No, I do think it's true, because I know certain people that are very centrist, and the moment you mention abortion, they lose it.
Well,
And
Roe versus Wade is gone. It's now, it's now being decided in the states. So
doesn't matter. But what they say is Trump and Vance are trying to take away your right for your reproductive rights, which of course is ridiculous. Reproductive, it's not reproductive, but yeah, killing babies, there is nothing more sacred to them, to those on the left. That is their winning issue. And I do firmly believe that whoever leaked the Supreme Court decision about Roe v. Wade being overturned prior to the 2022 election, that's what won it for them. And they're, as usual, they're lying. They overturned Roe v. Wade. It did not make abortion illegal. All it did was it said this was bad law, return it to the states, end of issue. But that's not how the Democrats phrased it. And it's a winning issue for them. It really is their only winning issue.
well, I want to thank everyone again for joining us today. We appreciate your support. If you have it in your heart to go to our website, jewishrepublicanalliance.org, become a member, join our organization, make a donation, tell a friend, stay informed, get involved, and make a difference. And until we meet again, we have a lot of great things that we're planning, events coming up, chapters being developed, shows that we're going to be doing, interviews, things that we're writing. We're making an impact, and we appreciate you being by our side. So until we meet again, we wish everybody a great weekend, Shabbat Shalom, and we will see everybody soon. Bye-bye for now.
Shalom.